Hello, my lovely Misfitians, and welcome back to another video. So, as most of you know, I have not been painting for quite a while due to just some sickness, and I thought I would share with you a really quick activity that I like to do when I feel a bit rusty in my painting process. So, the very first thing that I'm going to be doing here is just prepping my paper. Since I'm going to be working in a watercolor journal this week, I am just going to take some large metal clips and just make sure the paper is really nice and taut so that while I'm painting, it's not buckling really underneath and causing a problem for me to make nice, sharp, smooth lines. So these little doodle houses are incredibly easy to actually paint as long as you think about them as if they're 3D boxes. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint basically a basic rectangle. But in order to make my rectangle look a bit more 3D, or my houses look a bit more 3D, I'm going to slant the top of my rectangle and slant the bottom of my rectangle in the same direction. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take that same color and make a triangle right on top. And since my rectangle is a little bit off, or basically tilted a little bit, to make sure that I put my triangle on correctly, I'm just going to draw a little line straight up the middle of the rectangle and then create that point and then pull the triangle down to meet the top of my rectangle. Now, the next thing that I'm going to want to do is take a lighter color of the same color hue. So basically I was using a permanent green here. I'm going to use a Failio yellow green, or basically a lime green. And once again, draw another little box right next to my last rectangle. And this box, once again, is going to be slightly tilted to create that 3D effect. And you can kind of already see how the house is looking a little bit more of 3D just by using a lighter color on one side and a darker color on the other, and also creating that kind of tilted 3D box look for your house. So basically right now, all I'm going to do is the same thing over and over again in a ton of different colors. Now, after your little houses have dried, you might notice that some of your sides, basically, or your darker colors, might not be as dark as you would prefer them to be. This is very easy. Once all of your little houses are dry, go ahead and glaze a layer of the same color that you used before on top. And what's going to happen is that glaze is going to make that color underneath pop a bit more and look a little bit more dynamic, thus creating kind of that 2D or 3D looking shadow effect to our houses. So once you have completed this, make sure this is completely dry once again, and then we're going to put our roofs on top. So what I like to use for my roofs in this particular doodle is PH Martin's matte black ink, and then I water it down to more of a gray, kind of milky paint ratio consistency. And then you simply have to paint small little rectangles once again on the edge of your houses, just like I'm doing right here. And you don't want these roofs to be super dark. We want them to be a gray tone because we're going to put little doodles on top to make them look cutesy. So make sure that your paint layer for this, or your ink layer, is not too intense of a color, but more of a light kind of charcoaly gray. And I'm just going to continue to paint all of these little roofs one by one until all of my houses have this little gray roof on top. Now, after you have all of your little gray roofs, go ahead and with your same paintbrush that you used before, lay down a very thin line, basically to complete the top of your little house's roofs. And once again, do this over and over again until you do this to all of your little houses. Okay, the next thing that we're going to be doing is adding little windows and doors. And what I'm going to do is take a micron pen, size 08, so a thicker, larger ink pen, and this is permanent ink, and just place, once again, little rectangles on our houses. And what I tend to like to do is first kind of position where I would want my door to be located, and then kind of decide from there where I would want my little windows to be located. All right, now that we have all of our little windows and doors done, the next thing we're going to do is add little patterns to our roof. And the way we're going to do that is use another micron pen. This time I'm going to be using the size 005, which is the smallest you can get. And I'm basically just going to alternate between different patterns, whether they be stripes or little grooved patterns or even little boxes, just to create a little bit more interest to our small cozy houses. Okay, so now I have my houses kind of situated, but I need to place them onto the ground or make them look like they're sitting on something. So what I'm going to do is place a small little line on either side of my rectangle, or basically my little house. And then with my micron pen, once again that 005, I'm going to add little bushes to either side of my house. And this is going to make the houses look like they're sitting on the ground. Now, just like in a neighborhood, alternate your little trees or bushes, make some of them taller, some of them smaller, kind of have them fit with the houses. This is going to add to that unique, cozy feel of a nice kind of neighborhood of small houses. After you have your taller or more bushier bushes on either side of your house, the next thing that I would recommend doing is just adding smaller bushes in the front of your houses. And I like to put these down with little Ys, you'll notice. That's kind of little tree trunks and stems coming up. And I place these in all different types of areas. Once again, if you're in a neighborhood, the houses and the landscape would look all different. And this is going to add to kind of that unique, just quirky vibe of this particular doodle. So now we're finally starting to get to actually the end of this doodle. So your paints actually that you used earlier with basically your house doodles should have started kind of drying on your palette. So what we're going to do is add more water to them, the same exact colors, and dilute them down to more of a watery consistency so that we get these really nice pale colors for our bushes. And what I'm going to do is match my bushes to the houses that they are located with. And finally, the very last thing we're going to do is add our houses' shadows. So this is really what's going to make those houses look like they're popping in a 3D element off of our paper. So the way I'm going to do this is actually take my purple and add a little bit of gray to it. So the gray that I used was neutral tint. Once again, this is going to be a very watery mixture. And what I'm going to do is basically paint small rectangular boxes, and some of them will have that kind of triangle top, all in one direction. So basically for me, I'm pretending like the sun is on the right side of my houses and it's pushing the shadows to the left. And the next thing you're going to do is just let this completely dry, because the last thing we're going to do is add little blades of grass. And once again, we're going to be using our 005 micron pen. And I'm just going to put little lines here and there. These are really tiny little lines of like V's or even little lines of 3 coming up. just to give the representation of grass or little blades of grass around our houses. And that's it. Once you're done, this is kind of the final product. I really hope you enjoyed this particular tutorial. If you did, please make sure to like this video and comment down below that you would like more types of tutorials like this. If you want to know specifically the supplies that I use for this tutorial, or even a step-by-step instructional video, or basically you can read the instructions for this particular tutorial, make sure to check out the link down below. I'm actually creating a whole lesson around this. So all you have to do is log into my site, Watercolor Misfit Land, and then you can go directly into this course and get a nice little packaged tutorial of this particular lesson. So that is it, y'all. Once again, happy painting, and I'll see you next time.